Jesse Jackson Jr. Welcome forward to the Jesse Jackson Jr. Show on KBLA Talk 1580. Kicking off the first hour is Conversations with Atiba, a former Deputy Executive Director for the National Black Caucus of State Legislators. He's a strategic alliance consultant and president of Party Politics US. He's worked as a TV political contributor for BNC News, The Heat, In the Know with Mo, The Leslie Marshall Show, iHeartRadio, GovExec, 96.3 WHUR, and One America News Network. He most recently was a guest host on Rising, an American daily news and opinion web series produced by Washington, D.C. political newspaper The Hill. In 2020, Atiba released his first novel, Saving Grace, a political thriller. Atiba, welcome forward to the Jesse Jackson Jr. Show.
Jesse, it's always great to be with you.
Atiba, breaking across the country right now is a national news that conservative activist Charlie Kirk, while speaking in Utah, details still unknown, was shot. The extent of his injuries, again, still unknown. Certainly, Atiba, we are living in a time where political violence tensions are rising on all sides. Rhetoric, language, words matter in this particular context. Your thoughts on this breaking news?
Well, first off, thoughts and prayers go out to him and his family, and we hope that he has he'll be okay. The reality is the language, and as you just said, words matter. The reality is that it's not just the words; it's the tenor, it's the tone of the words and the attacks that have been put on people. And so, if you back people into a corner, eventually they're going to push back and fight back. And it's unfortunate that it has come in this form, but it's hard to say with what has been going on and how much people have been feeling pushed that something wouldn't push back. And, we just hate to see it come to this.
I'm grateful for your words in this moment for Charlie Kirk and his family. We're certainly hoping and praying that he is going to recover and that he's doing well. We will keep our listeners up to date throughout the hour in Mr. Kirk's knowledge of what has taken place in Utah. Again, breaking news, conservative political activist Charlie Kirk has been shot at an event in Utah, and the rising tensions across the country, as Atiba just articulated, are being felt everywhere. Atiba, before we bring on our guest, I want to ask you a question about your thoughts about what's taking place in Washington, D.C. The president went out last night, and I guess he went to Joe's Stone Crab, confronted some protesters at his first dinner. But I also understand that the presence of the federal troops in some measure under the statute that the president invoked is expiring either now or within the next 24 hours.
Yeah, the hope is that it's going to expire and that they'll pull back. There's so many different realities. And one of the things that I keep saying to people in my private conversations is that two things can be true. And the reality and unfortunate parts that we're not hearing, or that I think that the country still isn't hearing, is like that there's violence and there are things that are going on in DC, and that how that is to be addressed. I think the president, in terms of identifying that there are things that are going on in DC and in other urban areas around the country, it's a fact. It has been going on. How we address it and the humanity in terms of how we address those problems, the president's in a position where he could go down as being a great president if, and that's a big if, he worked with folks to look at how this can be addressed in a way that can be beneficial to all. But the issue here is that that people recognize that there's something else afoot, and that there's something else in terms of a power grab that's at play here. So I think the mayor has done a really good job of expressing her willingness to work with the federal government to address some of the issues that are going on in DC. But in terms of, as I said before, tenor, tone, all those things are very important. And being overly aggressive and putting a military presence, I don't disagree and don't think that is the right thing. And I hope that they will pull back and let the National Guardsmen go home to their families.
When we come forward, Atiba and I are going to welcome Florida State Representative Darrell Campbell to our conversation this wealthy Wednesday, in large measure because so much has been taking place in the state of Florida. I'm grateful that Atiba reached out to one of his close allies. Florida State Representative Darrell Campbell will be our special guest when we come forward on the Jesse Jackson Jr. Show on KBLA Talk 1580.
While you're stuck in traffic, we can at least bring you up to speed on the news of the day. You're listening to Jesse Jackson Jr. only on KBLA Talk 1580.
With a KBLA Talk 1580 editorial, I'm Dr. Nicolai Corte. Let's preserve Black land stories before they're lost forever. I want to personally invite you to be a part of something historic. As journalist in residence for the Black Land Lost Narrative Archive Project, I've joined forces with powerhouse attorney and social justice champion George Fothery, the man who helped make history by delivering justice to the Bruce family in Manhattan Beach, securing the first known return of land unjustly taken from Black owners by a local government. That victory was monumental, but it was just the beginning. For generations, Black families have acquired land through grit, faith, and determination, only to lose it through violence, legal loopholes, forced sales, and systematic racism. What's been taken goes far beyond dirt and deeds. It's the erasure of wealth, identity, and legacy. That's why we've launched the Black Land Lost Narrative Archive Project, a national effort to collect, protect, and preserve the stories of Black land lost before they're buried. There is resistance in remembering, and there's justice in being seen and heard. This is where you come in. We're inviting you to be a part of this historic Black narrative archive. If you or someone you know has experienced land loss, displacement, or forced property sales, your story deserves to be heard and remembered. Your story belongs in this archive. Your truth matters not just to your family, but to our collective future. Visit blacklandlost.org today. Fill out our simple intake form and add your voice to the National Archive of Remembrance, Resilience, and Reckoning. Let's make these stories live on, not in whispers, but on the record. With a KBLA Talk 1580 editorial, I'm Dr. Nicolai Corte, and as always, we welcome your feedback.
Now back to more of Jesse Jackson Jr. on KBLA Talk 1580.
Welcome forward to the Jesse Jackson Jr. Show. I'm Jesse Jackson Jr. This is Wealthy Wednesdays on KBLA Talk 1580, where our very special guest, Atiba, and I welcome Florida State Representative Darrell Campbell. Representative Darrell Campbell proudly serves as the Florida State Representative of House District 99, advocating for the vibrant communities of Fort Lauderdale, Lauderhill, Lauderdale Lakes, Wilton Manors, and Plantation. In his first term in the Florida legislature, Representative Campbell sat on pivotal committees such as healthcare appropriations, justice appropriations, civil justice, ways and means, and energy communication and cybersecurity. His journey to the legislature springs from his profound experience as a social worker. As a licensed clinical social worker and certified addiction therapist, Representative Campbell has dedicated himself to counseling individuals grappling with mental health challenges. Representative Darrell Campbell, welcome forward to the Jesse Jackson Jr. Show.
Absolutely, absolutely. Thank you for having me. It's definitely an honor to be on the show with the esteemed individuals such as yourself, Jesse, and Atiba. And so I'm looking forward to add value and perspective to the conversation today.
And welcome to the conversation with Atiba. Atiba, why don't we begin with you?
So, Representative Campbell, first off, thank you so much for joining us today. And when I was asked to have someone to join the show from Florida, you were the first person I thought about for a number of reasons. One, because you're young, and I think that one of the things that we're looking at in terms of the dynamics that are going on around the country, and the first question that was raised to me was about what was going on here in Miami as it related to the possibility of canceling an election. But as you're looking across the state and you serve in a legislature with majority Republicans. People call Florida a red state. What are some of the things that you are experiencing, seeing as you're looking nationally, but also experiencing in the state legislature that you can share that you think that we should know in terms of how you all are addressing some of those issues, as well as how we can help you in terms of addressing some of those issues and challenges?
Absolutely. Thank you for that question. So it's an interesting time that we're living in right now, and dealing with some of the divisiveness that we see publicly. Unfortunately, what folks may believe is happening on a national level, it's a little bit calmer on the state level, where we have more of a working relationship with us, with the Republican colleagues of mine across the aisle. Um, the only thing is that we usually differ on a lot of the more stringent issues that we know. Like right now, Florida just passed, of course, just ruled back on open carry in Florida. So now open carry is now officially on in Florida, and so that's something that um, uh, at our core, we disagree with. Being that there are we're seeing all the the mass shooting that are going on, particularly in schools. Um, you know, as you are aware, Charlie Kirk just got shot, and so hearing news like that really raises your eyebrow and raises your concerns. Is are Do we have responsible people, or do we have the protections of the community when we're thinking about responsible people holding having weapons at their hands? And so it's one of those things that um, as a legislator, watching people and hearing people talk about, they want to see us stand up more. They want to see us combat some of these issues, which we are doing. We are standing up, but also we also have a goal constitutionally to make sure that um, we get laws passed, and for me, my main focus has always been targeting what's the low hanging fruit that we could find center ground at, especially in a supermajority.
I do want to comment on that idea of finding center ground, because the rhetoric, which Atiba talked about in our opening segment, has reached such a fever pitch that it appears that civility is really, a thing of the past in this moment. It seems to be outside of the door. And yet, you maintain some level of civility. I've watched state representatives, Justin Jones, and others in the state of Tennessee over these gun questions, still trying to maintain some level of civility. Uh, but the racial tension is, something that really does undergird how we're feeling. And I want Representative Campbell just to remind you that there was this period where African Americans in southern states were literally boarded onto buses and sent north to the Kennedys because they were told the Kennedys are going to give them jobs. They called them the reverse freedom rides. Of course, they got off in front of the Kennedys' home and found out that there were no jobs, and nor were the Kennedys expecting them to be there. But, the state of Florida and the state of Texas, they sent men and women and families to Chicago, to our northern cities, to these sanctuary cities. And now we are living under the consequences of Governor DeSantis and Governor Abbott's decisions, a kind of reverse freedom rides that have now brought the Army, the Navy, the Air Force, the Marines, and even F-35s flying over the city of Chicago, hovering over protesters. Your thoughts on the consequences of the rhetoric and the heightened tensions?
Oh yeah, there's no doubt about it that I agree with you 100% on the tactics that our governor has used to bring attention to the state of Florida. I've spoken out numerous of times against how the governor has decided to address a lot of the issues that we are dealing with in the state of Florida, um, and the frustration is around those things. But to also be clear, what we saw in this past legislative session, we also saw a speaker that stood up against the governor. Granted, there are some political undertones to that, but the fact is that folks, we as Democrats down here are standing up against what the rhetoric is. The racial tension is at an all time high, and I recognize that every day that I go into the Capitol, when I'm addressing issues. Not a day goes by that I don't realize that I'm a black man with locks sitting in a state house where at one point in time it didn't even cause for me to be there.
Mm,
And so I understand the level of weight that I hold in my position, and I make sure I bring it every day that I go to work, and then how I represent. But at the same time, while I'm doing that, I also recognize that people back home want things to get done. People are tired of the back and forth, the social um, agendas that they see occurring. And so for me, I try to work and try to smooth out the racial tensions, but also working to get things done in my state houses is also a number one key. And yes, it's a difficult time. I've talked to countless of my predecessors that have talked to me about how they would get things done in the position, and they all recognize that everything that I'm facing are very they're unprecedented. And so it's a constant learning, especially as a young representative as myself, that I'm constantly dealing with. But I stand here firmly believing that the ways that my predecessors found opportunities to get things done, to get things passed. Those opportunities still exist, and it's all about figuring out how to get beyond the noise and really work with the majority on how do we get something that makes sense for all Floridians. And to be clear, like, a lot of folks, when we're seeing it, folks just want us to be somewhere in the middle and try to figure out a balanced agenda in the middle. And sometimes it's hard because you understand, you can see the political layout regarding that. And so my job and what I continue to do is provide hope to those, to know that they got somebody in there that's fighting for them on one end, but also is willing to make sure that he's working. I'm not afraid to go and talk to people across party lines to figure out how do we find some solutions. I think what we're seeing now is that we're seeing folks not choosing not to talk to each other, no matter how bad they may speak out against each other on the floor.
Atiba?
Yeah, so it's interesting, and thank you for that, Representative, because it made me think about there's a difference between policy and politics.
Mm,
And so, with politics, my father likes to ask me, so Atiba, what does politics to mean? How would you define politics? And I say, well, politics is the art of keeping an issue going long enough until it becomes irrelevant. So, when you talk about where people want the agenda to go, and where
keep it alive long enough until it becomes
it
irrelevant.
becomes irrelevant. I mean, you think about just how much and how often we're looking at stuff getting kicked down the road, right? Kicking the can. But what we don't talk enough about is policy,
Mm,
the agenda, in terms of how do we address it? Because we get so caught up in the politics and the nuances between Republican and Democrat and black and white and Hispanic and this. We never get to the agenda. And then by the time we get to the agenda, what you just said, people want to be middle of the road. I think that, when we look at each one of these national elections, often people are talking about, well, how people are going to attract an independent vote. So in Florida, this week, part of the conversation has been about rescinding vaccines and, how that's going to impact schools. What are you seeing? What are you hearing, one, from your constituents, and what are your thoughts in terms of how that's going to impact here in Florida, the rest of the country?
Absolutely, thank you for that. And what we're seeing on the ground, what we're hearing is that folks, Republican, Democrats, Independent, they're all up in arms about this. Nobody wants to see a second pandemic. And we can clearly see that the governor of Florida has chosen to go along and try to push political rhetoric. I say this all the time. Anytime I see Texas do something, it feels like Florida is trying to one up them. And how do I best and get the attention back on us? And we saw that with the reversal of mandate vaccines. And so folks are very upset. What we're going to see is we're going to see a lot more folks get sick. You're going to see a lot more students not go to school, not get the education, and we all know what happens to those who do not have the means for healthcare. Over 1 million people in Florida are without health insurance, and so we're choosing to forgo preventable diseases in allowing for uh, more sickness to erode, and thus hurting those that don't even have the finances, the affordability to pay for their own personal health care. Meaning that we're going to see hospitals get inundated. It doesn't dawn on me that I still remember that in the pandemic when folks were dying, they had to bring ship boxes outside the hospitals to put the dead bodies in. Like that's a realistic thing. And now we're looking at that to do that with our children. That's something my constituents are not standing for, and frankly, I'm not standing for, and I'm speaking out against it. It's the audacity to even go to those lengths to just try to get a political win.
We have about 4 minutes before we come forward. I do want to ask you a question about your Surgeon General, who I saw on television the other day making the case, a kind of, I think, a libertarian argument for freedom and freedom of choice, and kind of ignoring the idea that parents, teachers, young students can easily get on a plane, get on a bus, get on a train, and what was once a Florida problem, the measles, Atiba, can become a national problem fairly quickly. And it seems to me that even though the states may have the ability, Atiba, to um, manage their affairs, that there are real consequences when a state says, hey, vaccinations are no longer going to be mandatory. The consequences for the union, for the economy, for lives is very serious business.
Absolutely, Jesse. We here are very tired of the lack of focus of the cabinet, the governor, in Florida. We're seeing a crisis of healthcare, crisis of housing, affordability crisis. And the fact that the Surgeon General, whose number one job is to give healthy advice to those Floridians that live down here, um, and really make this into a social issue, is beyond me. I think he needs to resign immediately.
You know,
Um,
Brother Campbell, let me just say this. Atiba's heard me say this before. There's no such thing as a local congressman, right? You need 218 votes to get anything done. I can now say, Atiba, without any contradiction, there's no such thing as a local Surgeon General.
Right.
There's no such thing. I mean, viruses
Mhm.
spread, and if they're not all coordinated, if they're not all in agreement on what the consequences are, then all it takes is one, two, or three Surgeon Generals and a legislative body to say no vaccines, and we could be right where we started from during the
Mhm.
pandemic.
Absolutely, and I am. We are monitoring the situation as closely as possible. Um, we're looking forward to getting back up to Tallahassee. Right now, we're out of session, but when we get up to committee weeks, we know this is going to be this, amongst others, is going to be the topic of conversation. And right now, right now, our hands, all we can do is make sure that we speak out, speak up, and let the people hear us. But the Surgeon General is absolutely wrong in his effort to roll back on this. The fact that they're not using research to actually add data beyond that is he's misleading Floridians, and it's just putting us down a path of where folks are going to hurt, folks are going to die, and we're going to be back at the beginning saying, look, we told you so, this is what happened, and this is what happened. So elections caught.
You're listening to KBLA Talk 1580. When we come forward more with Conversations with the Team. I'm Jesse Jackson Jr. on the Jesse Jackson Jr. Show.
The biggest names, the best conversations. You're riding with Jesse Jackson Jr. on KBLA Talk 1580.
I'm Amber Payton with BIN News Now. President Trump is calling for the death penalty for a black man, DeCarlos Brown Jr., accused of killing 23-year-old Ukrainian refugee Irina Zarutsky on a Charlotte, North Carolina light rail.
What happened to Irina Zarutska is a heartbreaking tragedy that is shaking the city to the core. Is this the city we want to live in?
Brown faces federal charges that carry a maximum sentence of life or death. Trump posted on Truth Social that Brown should face a quick trial. A federal judge has blocked the Trump administration from firing Federal Reserve Governor Lisa Cook, who is black. She'll remain in her role while her lawsuit against the president moves forward. Trump claimed he was removing Cook over mortgage fraud allegations, which she denies. And in her new memoir, 107 Days, former Vice President Kamala Harris calls Joe Biden's 2024 re-election bid a reckless mistake, saying it was driven by ego. Get BIN News Now on demand 24/7 on the iHeartRadio app.
Think It Up is an initiative to activate student-powered, teacher-led learning projects. Students and teachers, how can you spark great learning experiences in your classrooms today? Join at thinkitup.org.
Is this the This is the KBLA Sports Minute with Ray Richardson.
The LA Sparks beat the Phoenix Mercury Tuesday night, but they were eliminated from contention for the WNBA playoffs. The Seattle Storm's 1-point win over Golden State Tuesday night clinched the 8th and final playoff spot for the Storm. The Sparks needed Seattle to lose to stay in contention. This is the 4th straight year the Sparks have failed to make the playoffs. The Sparks wrap up the season Thursday night at home against the Las Vegas Aces. The Dodgers increased their lead to 2 games over San Diego in the NL West. Right fielder Teoscar Hernandez hit 2 home runs Tuesday night to spark the Dodgers' 7-2 win over Colorado. Top 5 college football teams in this week's top 25 poll: Ohio State, Penn State, LSU, Oregon, and Miami. Jackson State remained at number 15 in this week's NCAA Division I AA rankings. No debates, no speculation, just the info you need. That's your KBLA Sports Minute. I'm Ray Richardson. More news, opinions, and conversation when we come forward on KBLA Talk 1580.
This is KBLA Talk 1580. Talk radio. That's music to your ears. We're unapologetically progressive. KBLA Talk 1580. We've got a lot to talk about.
I'm Reverend Gerald, the life coach. Is someone you love struggling with addiction and mental illness? Is improving your family's health important? Want to leave a legacy that your family can grow? Are you ready to enhance your perception of life experiences? Then wake up weekends at 7 a.m. with Urban Family Focus and get the wisdom, opportunity, resources, and motivation to live your best life. Join the conversation on Urban Family Focus Saturday and Sunday at 7 a.m.
Unapologetically progressive. KBLA Talk 1580. We've got your black.
Attorney advertising. Prior results do not guarantee future outcomes.
Founded in Los Angeles in 1986, litigation powerhouse Quinn Emanuel has deep roots in the Los Angeles community. Since 2007, we have litigated some of the largest fires on the West Coast. We are proud to be the only AmLaw 100 firm in the country to represent wildfire victims, giving affected individuals, families, and businesses the same focus and individualized attention we devote to our Fortune 500 clients. BTI Consulting has repeatedly recognized Quinn Emanuel as among the 4 law firms in-house counsel least liked to oppose in any litigation, and we are often deemed the most feared. And after securing over $80 billion for our clients in various matters firm-wide, we understand why. If you have been affected by the recent wildfires in Altadena and the Palisades and would like to discuss your situation further, please contact wildfire support at QuinnEmanuel.com or call us at 213-443-3050. Quinn Emanuel is proud to sponsor Conversation Live Altadena Rising with James Farr on KBLA Talk 1580.
Attorney advertising. Prior results do not guarantee future outcomes.
Let's go! You're still glowing, flirting, grooving. You still got it. But your immune system weakens as you age, making it harder to fight flu, pneumococcal pneumonia, RSV, and COVID-19. Vaccines are a key part of any health routine and help strengthen your immune response. Ask your doctor or pharmacist which vaccines you need. Schedule in minutes at vaxassist.com. Sponsored by Pfizer.
Why choose a Sleep Number smart bed?
Can I make my site softer?
Can I make my site firmer?
Can we sleep cooler?
Sleep Number does that. Cools up to 8 times faster and lets you choose your ideal comfort on either side. Your Sleep Number setting. It's the Sleep Number biggest sale of the year. All beds on sale up to 50% off the limited edition smart bed. Plus free premium delivery with any smart bed and adjustable base. Ends Labor Day. All Sleep Number smart beds offer temperature solutions for your best sleep. Check it out at a Sleep Number store or sleepnumber.com today.
KBLA Talk 1580. We've got a lot to talk about.
KBLA Talk 1580, connecting you with services and solutions. The Autopsy Initiative provides a second autopsy free of charge for victims' families who have lost their loved ones due to a police-related death. The services offered through the initiative include the completion of a second autopsy, disclosure of preliminary findings, and a final autopsy report. A police-related death is when an individual is harmed by police officers using deadly force, which results in an individual's death. Police-related death includes in-custody deaths, including those that arise during contact with law enforcement officers during arrest, pursuit, booking, transport, or incarceration. The Autopsy Initiative has a team of board-certified pathologists on call. An autopsy request may be completed by anyone with a close relationship with the victim, which may include the victim's spouse, partner, relative, close friend, or lawyer. To request a free second autopsy for a victim of police violence, please visit knowyourrightscamp.com. That's knowyourrightscamp.com. Then click on Autopsy, then click on Request. At KBLA, we believe in justice for victims of police violence. We say their names, and we don't black down. This is a community call to action from KBLA Talk 1580.
You're listening to Jesse Jackson Jr. on KBLA Talk 1580.
Welcome to the Jesse Jackson Jr. Show on Wednesdays, where we have a conversation with Atiba, and our very special guest in this hour is none other than Representative Daryl Campbell. During his tenure in the legislature, Representative Campbell has empowered individuals to embrace their authentic selves, transcended barriers of race, gender, and socioeconomic status. He has secured $10.4 million in appropriations and successfully passed bills addressing the needs of persons with sickle cell disease, as well as enhancing job opportunities for formerly homeless individuals, guiding them towards realizing their limitless potential. Representative Campbell, welcome forward to the Jesse Jackson Jr. Show.
It's a pleasure to be here.
Atiba?
So, Representative Campbell, if you could change one thing about how we do policy and politics in America and in your generation, what would that be, and how would you go about doing it?
So that's a loaded question, man. It's so many things that you know, you can point to kind of begin doing that. I think where we began to start to see the change was when that bill got passed to allow for super PACs. And when we added money into politics, it what it did was it left it left the people who had the money to play in it, and those who couldn't out of it, and that over there widened the gap. And what you see now is a lot of policies that are being implemented are being led by a lot of um, high stake individuals who have the money to you know add to people's campaigns. Making sure that their issues get focused on. And so, if I would say that that's the thing I would try to do is remove money out the politics, and really focus on people driven initiatives. People who have no money feel like they don't have a voice because they don't have the money to fight against that. And we seen time again where people who previously been in the legislature leave, and they say, you got to take out the money. Until the money is removed, everybody won't be equal to playing this game.
Yeah, I think that's right, Atiba. And then you end up in this cycle when you have the kind of solid representation that Representative Campbell represents, where you cannot unilaterally disarm. So you find yourself chasing dollars in order to effectively compete, to maintain a voice in the legislative body for the least of these. It's not an easy job at all. Atiba?
Yeah, the other thing is, as we're looking at this, dynamic. Now, I don't want to jump because part of me wants to go and talk about what's going on in New York, because the Democrats, I think, have a big problem right now, and part of that problem is what you just addressed in terms of how often I know my phone rings, or every day, 5 to 10 times, with someone asking for money for their campaign. And when you say take money out of the campaign cycle, my question, I know that for me, I think that we need to go back to a grassroots approach. But then from your standpoint and from what you're hearing and seeing from your generation in terms of younger people, how then do you see going about having a campaign and identifying candidates who can win a campaign if we're taking money out of politics?
Mm-hmm. I believe that if we did that, more of my generation would be more invested. What you see now is my generation and the young and Gen Zs are solely focused on entrepreneurship. There's no more, I'm going to invest 20 years into a company like my parents did. It's 2 years and I'm looking to move on. This I joke with everybody and tell them, like, this being a representative is going to be my longest job that I've ever had.
And then you get term limited.
Yes. So it's that folks are, like I said, we are so inundated with news after news, terrible news after terrible news. Like, just coming onto this, we done hear about 3-4 different news that within the last hour, and folks are just inundated, tired, and they want reprieve. They want to find ways to get away from it, and so that pushes folks away. You add the money context into it, and feeling like you don't even have enough to play. Folks feel better to focus on themselves, and not worry about the overall existential issues, like, how is this going to affect? Well, I'm gonna go make mine, make it out the mud, and I'm just gonna make sure mine's and theirs is taken care of, and everybody else will have to do the same and pick themselves up by the bootstraps. But what happens if they don't have the bootstraps to pick themselves up by? And that there lies the issue.
Atiba?
So one more question, and that has to go back to the issue of canceling elections, because I think there's a general concern as we're moving into 2026. We just saw the race yesterday in Virginia, where Democrats were able to hold the seat and gain a seat that was held by Congressman Connolly, which is shrinking the majority that the Republicans have in Congress. What do you see, or what are you hearing? Are there whispers, or have you, among your colleagues, particularly on the other side, in terms of what 2026 may look like for the midterms?
Man, I'm here on one end, scared what 2026 looks like with the redistricting conversations that we're having in the middle of the tenure.
The decennial.
Yeah, yes, I'm concerned about that. But at the same time, I will always remain hopeful and prideful, because I knew what my ancestors went through, and what they went through was far, far, far worse of a cry than what I have to deal with right now. And I will continue to fight and making sure that our voices getting heard, that our elections are fair, and that is people powered, people campaigned. When the way I won, I got to the doors. I made sure I knocked, got people to support me, and thankfully the community came out in droves, and they said, I want him to be our leader. I want him to be our voice. And I'm gonna continue to keep doing that because I want to make sure that we're still in hope. If there was no hope, we wouldn't even be here. To this day, we would have made the progress that we've made. And so, I'm here as living by the Constitution, making sure that we are enforcing our laws by the Constitution and that they effectively meet the means of the people. And if the people want to change it, let's leave it up to the people.
I'm Jesse Jackson Jr. These are Conversations with Atiba. Representative Campbell, we want to thank you for joining us on the show. When we come forward on KBLA Talk 1580, more with Atiba.
Thanks so much, Jesse.
While you're stuck in traffic, we can at least bring you up to speed on the news of the day. You're listening to Jesse Jackson Jr. only on KBLA Talk 1580.
You have cancer. The 3 words no one wants to hear. Of the cancers that impact our community, lung cancer is the most dangerous. More people succumb to lung cancer than colon, breast, and prostate combined. Black men are 12% more likely to develop lung cancer, and cases for Black women are rising. Early detection and comprehensive treatment is the best way to beat this dreaded disease. Providence is a research leader in multi-cancer early detection, offering blood tests that identify fast-spreading cancers that don't show symptoms in early stages. The Providence Los Angeles Integrated Network Cancer Program determines best protocols for each patient, interacting with specialists who share experiences, perspectives, and new findings specific to each case. With over 1,000 board-certified physicians, including top oncologists, surgeons, radiologists, and nurse specialists, Providence delivers whole-person care that understands your culture, values, preferences, and priorities. So, if you hear the words, "you have cancer," all you need is faith and providence.org/cancer.
When you turn to the Employment Development Department, we'll help you get there. Whether it's support for you and your family while you find a new job, or the resources to focus on your recovery after illness or injury, we can help you move forward. From support while you bond with your newborn, to helping serve your family while your partner serves our country. Your EDD. We'll help you get there. For more information, visit edd.ca.gov.
Protect yourself from Medicare card scams. Scammers may call, email, or even knock on your door claiming they need your Medicare info, asking for money or threatening to cancel your benefits. Don't fall for it. It's a scam. Remember, Medicare doesn't need to verify your information. They already have it. Medicare won't charge you for a new card and will never threaten to cancel benefits. Check your Medicare statements for suspicious charges and report scams to the California Senior Medicare Patrol at 1-855-613-7080. We're here to help.
KBLA Talk 1580. We've got a lot to talk about.
Imagine a Los Angeles where everyone can thrive, where communities have access to the resources they need to succeed. That's the vision of Detours Mentoring Group, Inc. They're dedicated to improving life in LA County by providing educational support, employment assistance, and spaces for community engagement. By 2050, they want LA to be the best place to connect, create, learn, live, and play. They're working toward an education system that's well-resourced and culturally responsive, becoming a hub for artists and innovators, and making sure everyone has access to healthy food, quality healthcare, and safe housing. It's about building a future where we all have the chance to succeed. We invite you to learn more about their mission and get involved with Detours Mentoring Group, Inc. This is a community call to action from KBLA Talk 1580.
KBLA Talk 1580. We've got a lot to talk about.
KBLA Talk 1580 reminds you that we keep us safe. Every girl deserves a chance to shine. That's the belief behind Forgiving for Living, Inc. Since 1999, this organization has been empowering at-risk girls ages 13 to 18, helping them overcome behavioral and mental health challenges. Founder Wendy Gladney's personal journey inspired the mission to give girls hope and purpose through the power of forgiveness. Through their ambassador program, workshops, and annual conference, Forgiving for Living has touched over 3,000 young lives, providing mentoring, life skills, training, and tools for building self-esteem and confidence. You can make a difference. Visit forgivingforliving.org to donate, volunteer, become a mentor, or find help for a young girl in need. Forgiving for Living, Inc., building brighter futures for young girls. Visit forgivingforliving.org today. This is a community call to action from KBLA Talk 1580.
Dr. Renee here. Did you know this time of year is considered peak asthma season because we typically see a spike in asthma-related hospitalizations? If you have asthma and are having difficulty breathing despite medication, it's time to check in with your doctor so you can help avoid landing yourself in the hospital this season. To learn more about managing your asthma, visit www.luma-edu.com. That's LUMA-edu.com. This message is brought to you by Amgen and AstraZeneca.
Now back to more of Jesse Jackson Jr. on KBLA Talk 1580.
Jackson Jr. Welcome to the Jesse Jackson Jr. Show on KBLA Talk 1580. This is Wealthy Wednesdays. On our show on Wednesdays, we have our Conversations with Atiba in the second hour. Dr. S. Todd Yeary, 1 foot in the pulpit, 1 foot in the courtroom, both lawyer and minister and theologian, will be our very special contributing partner. But in this hour, I'm particularly excited that Atiba brought Representative Campbell to the Jesse Jackson Jr. Show. And I understand that Representative Campbell has decided to hang with us for the final segment of the show. I'm particularly proud of him because these are extraordinary times. I reported at the very top of the show that Charlie Kirk has been shot. We are certainly praying for him and wishing him a speedy recovery. There's a lot of information flying around on the internet right now because of things that Charlie Kirk has said about gun violence in the past. In Newsweek on April 6, 2023, Charlie Kirk said, "It's unfortunate that there will be many gun deaths, but it's worth it to keep the Second Amendment." And today he has been shot in Utah while speaking at an university in Utah, and we're certainly wishing him well. I'm not going to spread any rumors or any speculation on this show. We will promote or share with you what we know when we find out what we know, and it's accurate by reputable news sources. But with that said, I am particularly proud of the guest that Atiba has brought to our show today. And Atiba, you have there's a lot to be said about that young man, Representative Campbell, and the leadership that he's trying to advance in the state of Florida.
Yeah, Jesse, and unfortunately, Representative Campbell had to leave. There's so much around the country to be hopeful for. The problem is we're getting inundated with so many of the distractions and so many things that are really important for us to pay attention to. When you mentioned the Second Amendment, I keep going over and over again in my head when President Kennedy was assassinated. Malcolm X was criticized, vilified for saying it was like the chickens coming home to roost. Now, there were a number of other things he said before that in terms of talking about what we have been doing in other places. And this is in 1963 and other places around the world. And it's part of the conversations that I'm having with people now to say, there are so many things that are going on that we have been doing to other people around the world. And now we're seeing it and feeling it here. It is like the chickens coming home to roost, because we have a problem, and we have a serious gun problem. We know back in, I believe it was June, the president, when he was a candidate, was shot at. He was an assassination attempt, and he survived that. But not everyone survives these attacks. And as Representative Campbell spoke about in Florida, open carry. I know I've been in Texas, and I know what it has felt like to sit. Recall sitting in San Antonio at a coffee shop outside waiting for a friend, and a woman was walking around with a long barrel shotgun like it was nothing. Like it was just normal. Like, why? I understand the need or the desire, the feeling to feel safe, but why walking around with a long barrel shotgun? America, we often hear presidents say, this is not who we are. I've long disagreed with them. This is who we are.
I was going to share with you that since you brought up that moment of the Malcolm X response, I was in high school when President Reagan was shot. I mean, there was nothing that I agreed with President Reagan on. I mean, very little. I met him once or twice, but certainly when my father brought Robert Goodman home from Syria, I met him at the White House. But I wouldn't wish even upon someone that I have strong political disagreements. And I might think that I was immature even during that era, because I considered him a political enemy, Reagan, versus everything that we've ever fought for, right? But his shooting was like, he doesn't deserve this. And neither did Brady, who did survive that unfortunate assassination attempt. And I'm no big fan of Donald Trump. I mean, there are days when he is so far underneath my skin that I feel horrible about it. But he didn't deserve an assassination attempt from my perspective. We can beat this guy at the polling place. We can beat him if we do our part and our best. It does not have to spiral into political violence. And I disagree with Charlie Kirk on just about everything. But, this could also be, should he survive, a transformative moment for him, and maybe even a transformative moment for their movement. That let's step back from the abyss. Let's step back from the precipice of resulting to violence and try and resolve our problems and our conflicts in the democratic processes. And we live with the outcomes of our elections and keep it moving. Atiba, we've got just about 3 minutes before we come forward. So I'm going to leave these final thoughts and the word of hope for this hour with you.
Thank you. And I agree with you 100%, and it's hard, I know, for a lot of people when they're in their cities and they're seeing the military presence and the National Guard, and then there are folks that are coming around with masks on in the form of ICE. I mean, there are just so many different things that are going on. But, often at the end of the show, you ask me about hope. And today, I just want to say that I think that in terms of right now, that we need a hope agenda. I keep thinking, every time I think about hope of your father, saying, keep hope alive. And it's up to us. It's not up to us to look for a leader. It's not for us to look for somebody who's going to lead us and guide us. It's up for us to lead and connect ourselves and recognize that the strength of our country is in our diversity, and the strength of our country is in our communities. And it's up to us to steal the narrative. And what that means to me is deconstructing the social construct and reconstruct it under an umbrella of inclusion that's for all Americans. And that message in terms of what rebuilding the American dream looks like has a still address poverty. I'm going to keep talking about poverty, because I really believe that America is not just financially poor, but it's morally poor right now. And so I think the message of rebuilding that is resounding, that people are looking for, is how do we get to a place where we have a livable wage, not a minimum wage? And how do we redefine inclusion and stop talking about things in silos? and stop talking about things in terms of conservative and liberal or progressive and black and white and Muslim and Christian, but talking about things in a way that we are literally remaking America. And there are so many things that are going on outside of America that I don't think that we have to remember. We cannot remake the world outside of America until we remake America within, because we are at a civil war right now. And just above all, to us, just recognizing that change and hope is within all of us. And I keep thinking about President Obama saying that the election when he was elected was never about him or Michelle. It was always about us. And it's up to us to lead that and really seek and think about, why did slavery exist? Why were we brought from Africa here? And I really believe that we were brought from Africa here for this moment, for this time, for us to rise up and for us to recognize that while we may feel as if we're being crucified, that it's time for us to have a rebirth. And I believe that the rest of the country is waiting for us to lead and not to be the victim, and not to continue to talk about things as being the victim, but talk about things from a hopeful standpoint, and not just hope talking, but
Atiba,
acting on it.
I'm Jesse Jackson Jr. This is KBLA Talk 1580. Thank you, Atiba. I appreciate you. See you next week when we come forward. Jesse Jackson Jr.
80 Santa Monica.
I'm Amber Payton with BIN News Now. President Trump is calling for the death penalty for a black man, DeCarlos Brown Jr., accused of killing 23-year-old Ukrainian refugee Irina Zarutsky on a Charlotte, North Carolina light rail.
What happened to Irina Zarutska is a heartbreaking tragedy that is shaking the city to the core. Is this the city we want to live in?
Brown faces federal charges that carry a maximum sentence of life or death. Trump posted on Truth Social that Brown should face a quick trial. A federal judge has blocked the Trump administration from firing Federal Reserve Governor Lisa Cook, who is black. She'll remain in her role while her lawsuit against the president moves forward. Trump claimed he was removing Cook over mortgage fraud allegations, which she denies. And in her new memoir, 107 Days, former Vice President Kamala Harris calls Joe Biden's 2024 re-election bid a reckless mistake, saying it was driven by ego. Get BIN News Now on demand 24/7 on the iHeartRadio app.
Think It Up is an initiative to activate student-powered, teacher-led learning projects. Students and teachers, how can you spark great learning experiences in your classrooms today? Join at thinkitup.org.
This is the KBLA Sports Minute with Ray Richardson.
The LA Sparks beat the Phoenix Mercury Tuesday night, but they were eliminated from contention for the WNBA playoffs. The Seattle Storm's 1-point win over Golden State Tuesday night clinched the 8th and final playoff spot for the Storm. The Sparks needed Seattle to lose to stay in contention. This is the 4th straight year the Sparks have failed to make the playoffs. The Sparks wrap up the season Thursday night at home against the Las Vegas Aces. The Dodgers increased their lead to 2 games over San Diego in the NL West. Right fielder Teoscar Hernandez hit 2 home runs Tuesday night to spark the Dodgers' 7-2 win over Colorado. Top 5 college football teams in this week's top 25 poll: Ohio State, Penn State, LSU, Oregon, and Miami. Jackson State remained at number 15 in this week's NCAA Division I AA rankings. No debates, no speculation, just the info you need. That's your KBLA Sports Minute. I'm Ray Richardson. More news, opinions, and conversation when we come forward on KBLA Talk 1580.
Are you ready to be a part of the conversation that will help shape our nation's future? Get ready to join us for the Left Coast Forum, Saturday, October 25th at LA Trade Tech, where progressive voices will come together to tackle the issues that matter most to working families across Los Angeles and beyond. From economic justice to climate action, from healthcare to housing, we're bringing together the brightest minds and most passionate advocates for real solutions and real change. With workshops, 2 major keynote addresses, and a closing reception with great music and good food. It's the Left Coast Forum, where your voice matters and your ideas take action. Saturday, October 25th at LA Trade Tech. Brought to you by KBLA Talk 1580 and the LA Progressive. The future won't wait, and neither should you. Mark your calendar now to be there and be heard. Stay tuned to KBLA Talk 1580 for more details.
I'm Jesse Jackson Jr. Welcome forward to Wealthy Wednesdays on the Jesse Jackson Jr. Show, where we discuss the politics of our faith with Reverend Dr. S. Todd Yeary, who is our regular contributor on the Jesse Jackson Jr. Show. I'm sitting here trying my best to follow the shooting of Charlie Kirk in Utah as best I possibly can. Of course, our thoughts and prayers are with him, but our thoughts and prayers increasingly are never enough for the kind of violence that we are witnessing on our streets, in our language, in our tone, which Atiba talked about in the previous hour. And yet, violence seems to be the alternative that we consistently turn to when we cannot be heard. Now, I don't mean that in the pejorative. I am not talking about us. There is no way in God's earth you can ever confuse me or anyone else that I associate myself with violent resistance. It's not going to happen. There are alternatives. Voting is a form of expression, engaging in dialogue, engaging in debate, and you will lose some debates. And that's okay. That's part of the civil discourse. But at the end of the day, whether it's on campus or whether it's in church on Sunday morning, or whether it's a confrontation with the police or the National Guard, at the end of the day, we all go home. That's the rule. Those are the terms of engagement. We all go home. Police officers go home to their families, and I go home to mine. Charlie Kirk gets to go home to his family, even though we disagree with them, and I get to go home to mine. Donald Trump and I may have strong disagreements, but at the end of the day, he gets to go home to his family, and I get to go home to mine. That's not an unreasonable request in our civil discourse. I'm particularly honored that Dr. S. Todd Yeary is our very special guest on Wednesdays. Dr. Yeary, welcome forward to the Jesse Jackson Jr. Show.
Good to be with you, my brother. It's this is America.
Dr. Yeary, these are very difficult times, and Atiba talked in the first hour, and I know you've talked in the past at length about how we choose our words, how we engage the civil discourse, why it matters, and why it is so central to our faith. Dr. Yeary?
Well, words are the expression of thoughts and ideas. But then they also can be tells, if you will, clues as to what action might follow. And so when we have conversations, we're not just listening to figure out how we counter as if this is a debate. We're really trying to get understanding, right? What is the other person thinking? How does what they say to me help me to understand what their perspective is? But also to understand what might flow in terms of follow-up engagement and interaction. Do we have partnership? Do we have continued adversity? And so it really kind of sets the context of not only what we say, but how we speak with our words and with our actions. Unfortunately, when we look at violence in America, violence has been a part of American history, even before there was American history, that in Utah, from about 200 yards away from what I've seen in the early reports, he is shot in the neck. We can almost imagine what the demographic is of the crowd. It's Utah. And so this isn't the narrative of let's talk about violence in urban cities or anywhere else. This is the epidemic of violence in America, though they would, many people like the president would pretend that somehow or other it only affects some communities. It reaches far and wide. When you have more guns on the street than you have people in the country, you have a recipe for disaster.
The concern that that I obviously have is that there is so much telegraphing with the language that we're hearing. I think you're Absolutely correct. And recognizing that this is Utah. This is Utah. Therefore, that's a code word for ain't no black folks there. It's white on white violence, but it's violence nonetheless. That's what we're trying to say by saying it's Utah, which means it's not black on white violence or white on black violence. It is probably ideological violence of some sort. Someone disagreed with Charlie Kirk's participation at an event in Utah and probably laid in wait for him in the context of that event. They knew that he was coming. These are some things that we can surmise. But what we do know about the president and the simplicity of his thinking is that this kind of escalation could very well end up in an escalation on the streets of the city of Chicago and Baltimore because of something that happened in Utah that we had nothing to do with. The president's mind on these matters are not very complicated. They're deeply troubling. I'm Jesse Jackson Jr. Our very special guest is Dr. S. Todd Yeary. He is both a minister and a lawyer, 1 foot in the courtroom, 1 foot in the church. We're going to be talking about the troubling times and our selection of words and the use of language for such a time as this. I'm Jesse Jackson Jr. listening to KBLA Talk 1580. More when we come forward with Dr. Yeary.
It's afternoon drive time with Jesse Jackson Jr. Only on KBLA Talk 1580.
With a KBLA Talk 1580 editorial, I'm Dr. Nicolai Corte. Let's preserve Black land stories before they're lost forever. I want to personally invite you to be a part of something historic. As journalist in residence for the Black Land Lost Narrative Archive Project, I've joined forces with powerhouse attorney and social justice champion George Fothery, the man who helped make history by delivering justice to the Bruce family in Manhattan Beach, securing the first known return of land unjustly taken from Black owners by a local government. That victory was monumental, but it was just the beginning. For generations, Black families have acquired land through grit, faith, and determination, only to lose it through violence, legal loopholes, forced sales, and systematic racism. What's been taken goes far beyond dirt and deeds. It's the erasure of wealth, identity, and legacy. That's why we've launched the Black Land Lost Narrative Archive Project, a national effort to collect, protect, and preserve the stories of Black land lost before they're buried, forgotten, or erased altogether. Because there's power in telling Black stories, there is resistance in remembering, and there's justice in being seen and heard. This is where you come in. We're inviting you to be a part of this historic Black narrative archive. If you or someone you know has experienced land loss, displacement, or forced property sales, your story deserves to be heard and remembered. Your story belongs in this archive. Your truth matters not just to your family, but to our collective future. Visit blacklandlost.org today. Fill out our simple intake form and add your voice to the National Archive of Remembrance, Resilience, and Reckoning. Let's make these stories live on, not in whispers, but on the record. With a KBLA Talk 1580 editorial, I'm Dr. Nicolai Corte, and as always, we welcome your feedback.
Wesley Financial Group is not a law firm.
Hi, I'm Chuck McDowell, the timeshare cancellation guy. In 2011, I founded Wesley Financial Group with one goal in mind: to help honest folks out of their timeshares permanently. Today, I run Wesley with my two sons, a real family business, treating every client and every employee like we'd want our own family treated. That philosophy has helped us grow into the largest, most trusted timeshare cancellation company in the United States. Fortune magazine even recognized us as one of the best places to work. Why? Because we genuinely care. In fact, some of our former clients were so moved by their experience working with us, they joined our team so they could help others to timeshare freedom. If you're stuck in a timeshare, give us a call. Let our family help your family.
Call Wesley now for your free timeshare exit kit. 800-687-7979. That's 800-687-7979. 800-687-7979.
Now back to more of Jesse Jackson Jr. on KBLA Talk 1580.
I'm Jesse Jackson. Jesse Jackson Jr. Show on KBLA Talk 1580. Our very special guest in this hour is Reverend Dr. S. Todd Eury. Dr. Eury, we discuss the politics of our faith. I'm wondering in this moment, with Martin Luther King Jr.'s last book, where do we go from here, chaos or community? I think we understand the chaos, but the breakdown in community, Dr. Eury, seems to be at the center of our civil discord in the absence of civil discourse.
Yeah, there's a lot in that framing, right? There's a fine line between discord and discourse. Sometimes discord can impact discourse. Sometimes discourse produces the discord. When Dr. King raises that question, where do we go from here, chaos or community? The first question is, where's here, right? Are we starting with the same frame of present to understand that there is the power of possibility in this moment, but there is no guarantee about the outcome unless we get to a critical mass of people who are willing to work together to produce one or the other. Whether it's chaos or community, they do not occur or form in a vacuum. It requires human intent and human action. Where we find ourselves today is a byproduct of human action, and I believe the cognitive dissonance and the moral indifference to what your query has actually pointed to, the recognition of universal human dignity. It does not matter what I might think about what you believe, who you believe in, if you believe in anybody. There are certain kind of rules of the road. How do we engage? And the first thing is to recognize that we come to the conversation with common humanity, even though we may not be operating from the same framework about what that humanity requires of us.
I think that what was operative for me in what you just said is that the idea of chaos or community is a choice and that it requires group engagement to choose one. No one person can choose it. And we have a choice between chaos or community, but it is our action in the present that matters to that process.
Oh, yeah. I mean, you get ready to see round 2 of an iteration of that very process in the forming of the second January 6th committee. Now, how the events of January 6th, 2021 are viewed is a collaborative effort. And obviously, we have seen, based on the recent actions by the president shortly after taking office, is that the view of many is not a view that the president and others shared in making that choice, with other choices pending, right? Some of them very controversial. It speaks then that now that I've heard your words and it informs my understanding of your ideas, I now have to look to your current and future actions, maybe even look at some of your past actions with a different level of scrutiny, because your assessment has disavowed the general rule that we all come with common humanity. When common humanity is violated with permission, I now have an obligation to not only listen to you differently or look at you differently, but also react and engage with you differently.
This I saw that yesterday when I first heard that a new panel was being created in the Congress to re-examine January 6th. So we have this official record established by Congressman Benny Thompson and the co-chairman of that committee, who was the Republican woman who had even been touted as possibly becoming a Democrat in the last election, and Kamala Harris was even reflecting upon appointing her as her vice president, Miss Cheney. The Congress of the United States is now starting another January 6th panel to offer its point of view of the historical interpretation of what happened on January 6th, only confusing not just the present, but the future when the future looks back upon the justification of the congressional record for the behavior that took place on January 6th. And let me just add this point right here, if I might. The congressional record is the longest running consistent history of the United States that is covered anywhere on earth. I mean, it is a record from the inception of the Republic that has never closed. It's actually kind of fascinating. But now, rather than universal acceptance of what we believe to have happened on January 6th, what we saw with our own eyes, what hundreds of hours of testimony revealed, we're going to go through some version of that process so that the historical record, Dr. Yuri, you understand this from your courtroom perspective, will reflect that both sides were right, that both sides found legitimacy. And it reminds me of something Abraham Lincoln said when he talked about both sides have a different definition of the term liberty, but in the final analysis, one is either liberty or the other tyranny.
Yeah, the dichotomy is in a not so idealistic way fascinating, right? When you talk about the congressional record, with all of the efforts to pull books out of libraries from everywhere from schools to public arenas to military academies, there is still a factual history that records the written and spoken words of persons who had been elected to represent the interest of constituencies in the framing and the forming of the American government. And so it's like we're going through the revisionism that is part and parcel of this president's MO. Let's be very, very clear. It's not shocking to me at all that he would want to have a different view, just like he's scrutinizing certain museums in the Smithsonian infrastructure, just like he appointed the 1776 commission to challenge the 1619 project. Well, the first thing you would notice, obviously, is that if your commission is the 1776 commission and I'm talking about the 1619 project, well, maybe we're not talking about the same thing, at least at its genesis.
That's right.
So we start with, I think, a contextual idealization. It's almost like an ideation, like it's a stupor. It's like if without confessing too much, let me just start here. I've not always been what we would call saved, and so in a younger version of myself, if I were to have that encounter, I might tell myself, "Don't do that." But let's just say hypothetically that my younger self meets my older self, and my younger self is in a different state of mind because he'd been smoking something. And trying to have a conversation with somebody who's been smoking something we know is kind of counterproductive because their capacity to engage in a relevant discourse is impaired. We have a serious impairment of an inability to have serious civil discourse because I think the behavior, a lot of folks, when I talk to the cats on the street and you trying to tell them, well, don't do what you're doing, they're like, well, why wouldn't I? Because everybody else I see, not only are they doing it, they smoking it. And so you have, the president's high, the speaker's high, the majority leader's high. It seems like the minority leaders are depressed, right? They need some uppers because the party's a little slow. And we're trying to tell folks that's living in the real world why they ought to do something differently. And they looking at us like, what you smoking?
Dr. Yuri, I'm gonna try and bail you out of this road you didn't walk down for a minute. Of course, the escalation of spirit energy. I wrote a book called The Finger of God, a discovery that I made when I was in prison. A word construction in the Constitution of the United States. Quite frankly, we got it wrong. The American people got it wrong. The Supreme Court's got it wrong. There is a theological experiment in the Constitution that centers itself in character. I found an experiment in the Constitution where the founding fathers began this republic in a deep theological reflection. And in that deep theological reflection, they sought out to find what they called, not Christianity, but the authentic religion of Jesus of Nazareth, the authentic religion. And for the founding fathers, before congregationalism and denominationalism, before there was a church, they believed that Jesus of Nazareth was so unique to human history, and I do too, that he was in a religion unto himself. Think about that for a moment. A religion unto himself. No pastor, no choir, no praise team, no group, no congregation, a relationship between him and his Father. Think about that. And while reflecting upon it, the oldest part of the scriptures is actually the part of the Bible that we don't read. Matthew chapter 1, verse 1 through 17. You know, Abraham begat Ishmael, begat Isaac, begat Jacob, begat, and begat, and begat, and begat, and begat. And we go right to the scripture. We don't want to go through all the begats. We don't want to go through all of the generations. And then it gets to this 17th verse where it says that there are, verse 17, there are 28 generations from David to the Messiah. David and Jesus. The scripture in Matthew chapter 1, verse 1 through 17 concludes in verse 17, David and Jesus. Well, David would have been the commander of an army and a militia. And Jesus, in the Old English, would be someone who grants reprieves and pardons in real life, in real time. What did the founding fathers set in motion? They set in motion something called the finger of God. They set in motion character. In other words, the president of the United States, elected every 4 years, was supposed to be a figure of supreme character elected by the American people. It looks like two job responsibilities. Commander of an army, have a military parade, boast your military's power, have the capacity to blow up the world hundreds of times, something Jesus of Nazareth never would have done, and the power to forgive on earth as it is in heaven, the power to grant reprieves and pardons for offenses against the United States. But only one person gets to perform this function. They took the function of the lineage of David and placed it in Article 2, Section 2, Clause 1. And just 30 days after the Constitution, Alexander Hamilton says this in a New York Advertiser: "For my part, I sincerely esteem the Constitution, a system which without the finger of God never could have been devised upon by such a diversity of interests." James Madison in Federalist number 37 says this: "It is impossible for a man of pious reflection not to perceive in it the finger of the almighty hand which is signally responsible for the rebellion." And this is 4 years before the Bill of Rights, a theological experiment. We're supposed to be electing someone to the high office of our nation who stands in the tradition of Jesus of Nazareth, of discipleship, of a spirit energy that brings people together. And without that spirit energy, Dr. Yuri, I just don't see how the union itself survives. It can't survive under the present spirit energy that exists in our nation. Dr. Yuri, I think we have about 1 minute before we come forward, and I put a lot on you, but we'll come forward and talk about it in just a moment. But these 30 seconds I got right here, they're all yours, Dr. Yuri.
Well, I'm going to take these 30 seconds and I'm going to clear my throat and let you get ready to go to break. And we'll talk about it on the other side.
I'm Jesse Jackson Jr. You're listening to the Jesse Jackson Jr. Show, The Politics of Our Faith, with Reverend Dr. S. Todd Urey on KBLA Talk 1580. More when we come forward with the pastor of the Douglas Memorial Community Church of Baltimore, former Chief Executive Officer of the Rainbow Push Coalition, and former National Board Member of the National Action Network, Dr. S. Todd Urey, when we come forward.
It's afternoon drive time with Jesse Jackson Jr. Only on KBLA Talk 1580.
I'm Amber Payton with BIN News Now. William McNeil, the 22-year-old black man beaten during a Jacksonville, Florida traffic stop, is suing the city and two officers.
On that day, I really just wanted my side of the story to be heard, and hopefully today that I hope my story get heard today.
His lawyers, Ben Crump and Harry Daniels, who are both black, say he suffered a brain injury and has not returned to college. A Jamaican all-girls school has banned styled baby hair, sparking online debate. St. Andrew High says the rule promotes neatness, but critics call it restrictive. Supporters argue it upholds tradition and discipline, while others say it limits personal expression. And Dwayne Keefe D. Davis, awaiting trial for Tupac's murder, claims Sean Diddy Combs once put a $1 million bounty on the rapper. He submitted interview transcripts and video as part of his defense. Get BIN News Now on demand 24/7 on the iHeartRadio app.
Think It Up is an initiative to activate student-powered, teacher-led learning projects. Students and teachers, how can you spark great learning experiences in your classrooms today? Join at thinkitup.org.
Is this the time? This is the KBLA Sports Minute with Ray Richardson.
The LA Sparks beat the Phoenix Mercury Tuesday night, but they were eliminated from contention for the WNBA playoffs. The Seattle Storm's 1-point win over Golden State Tuesday night clinched the 8th and final playoff spot for the Storm. The Sparks needed Seattle to lose to stay in contention. This is the 4th straight year the Sparks have failed to make the playoffs. The Sparks wrap up the season Thursday night at home against the Las Vegas Aces. The Dodgers increased their lead to 2 games over San Diego in the NL West. Right fielder Teoscar Hernandez hit 2 home runs Tuesday night to spark the Dodgers' 7-2 win over Colorado. Top 5 college football teams in this week's top 25 poll: Ohio State, Penn State, LSU, Oregon, and Miami. Jackson State remained at number 15 in this week's NCAA Division I AA rankings. No debates, no speculation, just the info you need. That's your KBLA Sports Minute. I'm Ray Richardson. More news, opinions, and conversation when we come forward on KBLA Talk 1580.
This is KBLA Talk 1580. Talk radio. That's music to your ears. We're unapologetically progressive. KBLA Talk 1580. We've got a lot to talk about.
Hi, I'm Zoe Williams, a.k.a. the Voice of Reason, encouraging you to join me weekdays from 7 to 9 p.m. for the world's most intriguing relationship radio roundtable. Every night, I facilitate and encourage our loyal listeners to participate in the most engaging relationship discussions you'll hear anywhere. So make it a point to rendezvous with me, Zoe Williams, the Voice of Reason, Monday through Friday, 7 to 9 p.m. Pacific Standard Time. Trust me, your relationships will never be the same. The VOR is on fire tonight.
Unapologetically progressive. KBLA Talk 1580. We've got your black.
Hi, I'm LA City Councilmember Curran Price, inviting you to the 30th anniversary of the Central Avenue Jazz Festival, Saturday, September the 20th, from 11 a.m. to 7 p.m. We've got 4 pavilions, 3 stages of live music, plus food, fun, and a marketplace all along historic Central Avenue between MLK Boulevard and Vernon Ave. Our featured acts this year are Gregory Porter, Pancho Sanchez, and Jasmine Horn at the 30th anniversary of the Central Avenue Jazz Festival, Saturday, September 20th, 11 a.m. to 7 p.m. along Central Avenue between MLK Boulevard and Vernon Avenue. Come out and bring the whole family because this legendary celebration is free. For more information, go to centralavjazzfest.com. I'm LA Councilmember Curran Price, and I absolutely approve this message.
You're still glowing, flirting, grooving. You still got it. But your immune system weakens as you age, making it harder to fight flu, pneumococcal pneumonia, RSV, and COVID-19. Vaccines are a key part of any health routine and help strengthen your immune response. Ask your doctor or pharmacist which vaccines you need. Schedule in minutes at vaxassist.com. Sponsored by Pfizer.
Why choose a Sleep Number smart bed?
Can I make my site softer?
Can I make my site firmer?
Can we sleep cooler?
Sleep Number does that. Cools up to 8 times faster and lets you choose your ideal comfort on either side. Your Sleep Number setting. It's the Sleep Number biggest sale of the year. All beds on sale up to 50% off the limited edition smart bed. Plus free premium delivery with any smart bed and adjustable base. Ends Labor Day. All Sleep Number smart beds offer temperature solutions for your best sleep. Check it out at a Sleep Number store or sleepnumber.com today.
You're listening to Jesse Jackson Jr. on KBLA Talk 1580.
I'm Jesse Jackson Jr. It's Wealthy Wednesdays on the Jesse Jackson Jr. Show on KBLA Talk 1580. Our very special guest in this hour is always Reverend Dr. S. Todd Yeary. Breaking news out of Denver, Colorado. At least 3 students have been shot at a local area high school, and reports are coming in the first hour. We talked about it. The shooting of Charlie Kirk. While we don't know all of the details, one of the preliminary reports, according to CBS, is that blood was everywhere. And certainly we're praying for him, as I believe he is probably in a hospital somewhere at this hour fighting for his life. What a great tragedy it would be. Even someone that we disagree with politically, that I might disagree with politically, he's supposed to go home at night at the end of even a conservative rally. It's not supposed to devolve into all of this. Character, Dr. Yeary, that's what my research showed me in prison. At the very top of this government, at the top of this system, was to be a person of character, and from that person's character was to flow a divine spirit energy that would cover all of the people. That's what I tried to say at the conclusion of the last break. Character counts, character matters, and it emanates from a pulpit in a church. It emanates from the presidency for a nation. It emanates from the chairman of the board of a corporation. Character matters at the top of our system. Dr. Yeary?
Yeah. I cleared my throat while we were away a couple times, actually. A person's character matters. The struggle is that even in the kind of mystical, mysterious, yet inherited framing that the founders brought with them, that was co-opted from elsewhere. If we look at the evolution of the history, granted, you take what you get when you get it, and you think about what does this moment mean. But when we say a person's character matters, the finger of God that is considered and informed and is referenced, right? Not necessarily per se in the Constitution, but about what went into that process. The problem is still that they couldn't define person. And so they never reach character. How do we reach that? Because chaos and community are both in the preamble. We, the people. It implies community, but in its praxis, it was exclusive. And so this framing is really, I think, an awareness that there is divinity in it. But I think as we've seen the character of America play out, you begin to wonder whether or not it was the founders who were divine and God who was the creation. How do we reach that? Look at what's coming out of the Supreme Court. Has been for a while. Listen to the tales that are looking to take us back, where the dignity of humanity is being reserved by some, right? And excluded for others. And so when we think about it, I then look to, I appreciate the frame. I'm a preacher. I'm thinking about the moment, but God's in it and not being committed to proving divine presence by what you do brings in the aspect that causes us to have conversations like these and others, that it's not sufficient to have a purported awareness of a divine moment if you don't attach that moment to a human obligation. There's no human obligation that I'm seeing here. No need to protect anybody, regardless of who they are. The Second Amendment is still going to have a rabid lobby that's going to make sure that you can get more and more guns on the street. You've got the Supreme Court taking up new versions of cases to figure out how can you remove the federal government from even forget monitoring, but even controlling, because then it causes you to raise this question. If these are the issues, if this is a divine moment, why is it so permissible? We talk about, quote, black on black crime, and we talk about violence in Chicago, in Baltimore, in LA. All right, then let me channel my inner, I can hear your father's voice in my head when he's asking this profound question. In some neighborhoods in this country, to find a gun than it is to find a job. Why is it that in some neighborhoods, the abundance of weapons that are not produced in that neighborhood, not purchased in that neighborhood, find their way to that neighborhood? Why is it that on a corner across the street from the drugstore that was set afire after Freddie Gray died in police as a result of an injury in police custody, why is it that in the middle of the afternoon, you can have an experimental cocktail of an opioid that includes fentanyl and antifreeze, and we in the hood? We can't even get good chemistry classes. So where you get the beaker, the test tube, we can't find special education to help bridge the remedial gap that's imposed by economic circumstances. See, I like the rhetoric is profound. The reality is troubling. And that's why Dr. King asked this question.
Let me throw this out at you. Todd Eury, as president of the United States with this power, a man of character, a man I trust, a man that I believe in of character as president of the United States, from you would emanate a very different spirit energy to the nation. I'm confident that you would be articulating a message for the least of these, for women who make 70 cents to the dollar of what men make, for women and their abilities to make their own decisions over their own bodies, for the diversity, the equity, the inclusion at every level of society so that all of us can fulfill our potential. I believe that you, from that pulpit, would have your own version of the dream, and the spirit energy might move the entire nation to a higher plane of human understanding. I believe that Todd Yeary in that position has the capacity to do that. And so every 4 years, we have a choice between, I'm just going to be candid, between Todd Yeary and Donald Trump or some Trumpite. Every 4 years, the American people have the opportunity to put up someone with character and vote on character. I envision Martin Luther King Jr. in the presidency. I see him in his own struggles. I've read Dyson's book. I've read Baldwin's account of Dr. King's depression, but I see a man struggling with his self, struggling with his personal experiment, struggling with his own character, trying to shed his middle classness and shed the shortcomings of his own ways, who doesn't want his private business in public like none of us do. But I see him trying to be a transformed individual, even in light of his limited human circumstances. And every American somehow is supposed to recognize, in my opinion, that experiment. I see Tavis Smiley in that role, not just on radio, but as a national Black leader, if he wants to be, or if he defines what he does that way, because that's the character of who he is. It's the character of who we are. And what we are looking at is some character where character no longer counts. That's what I see. Character no longer counts at this hour. I'm Jesse Jackson Jr. When we come forward, more with Dr. S. Todd Yeary on the Jesse Jackson Jr. Show on KBLA Talk 1580. When we come forward, I see my producer gets me to talk really slow on these outs sometimes when I leave too early on KBLA Talk 1580.
While you're stuck in traffic, we can at least bring you up to speed on the news of the day. You're listening to Jesse Jackson Jr. only on KBLA Talk 1580.
Thinking about going electric? Now is the perfect time. Electric vehicles cost less to run, don't need gas, and need fewer repairs than gas-powered cars. You can also save with federal and state tax credits, and in some areas, qualify for rebates on home charging stations. To learn more, visit www.breathesocal.org. That's www.breathesocal.org. Imagine a world without heart disease and stroke, where every person has the chance to live a full and healthy life. Join us for a walk to save lives at the American Heart Association's Greater Los Angeles Heart and Stroke Walk, Saturday, September 20th at the Rose Bowl. Every step made and every dollar raised means more people learning CPR, more life-saving research, and more time with the ones we love. Sign up at heartwalkla.org. The LA Heart and Stroke Walk is sponsored by Optum, UCLA Health, Keck Medicine of USC, and Dignity Health. September is World Alzheimer's Month, a time to shine a light on a public health crisis that deeply impacts Black families. 1 in 5 Black adults ages 70 and older is living with Alzheimer's disease, or AD, and the risk is twice as high compared to white adults. But AD isn't just forgetting a name or losing track of time. Signs of early AD could be repeating questions, missing appointments, or struggling with bills and daily tasks. These things aren't a normal part of aging. Here's the good news. Treatments are available that may help if AD is diagnosed early. If you notice changes in memory or daily routines, whether in yourself or a loved one, don't wait. Early diagnosis and intervention are key to managing AD effectively. To learn more about AD and a potential treatment option, visit treatalsearly.com. That's treatalzearly.com to learn more about the signs and symptoms and a potential treatment option. This message is brought to you by AZI.
Nationwide is so much more than a great insurance company. They're one of America's largest financial services companies. Like how I'm more than Saquon Barkley, the NFL's reigning leading rusher. I'm also the NFL's leading husher. Shh, hush up back there. Wow, I might have just set the hushing record. Well, almost. For your insurance and financial needs, Nationwide is on your side.
Nationwide Investment Services Corporation, member FINRA, Columbus, Ohio.
It's a classic odor tale. You fried fish for dinner, cleaned up, but the smell is still in the house. And the neighbors are coming over for game night. They're on their way. And then You spray Febreze Air Mist. Febreze Air starts working instantly to fight even your toughest odors, so you go from fish to fresh like that. Now, all you have to worry about is Pam cheating at charades.
Breathe happy, Febreze, la 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 la.
KBLA Talk 1580. We've got a lot to talk about.
KBLA Talk 1580 is committed to self-care and community well-being. Walk Good LA was formed in June 2020, inspired by the Black Lives Matter movement and the beginning stages of the COVID-19 pandemic. What began as a few minutes of breath work and yoga meditation before protests against police brutality turned into a safe space for the community to heal in hard times. The immensely positive response from the community transformed the momentum into a movement. Today, Walk Good LA is a Black and Brown-led community wellness organization based in Los Angeles. They provide spaces for healing through community yoga classes, guided meditations, hikes, run clubs, and other activations throughout Los Angeles that attract hundreds of members weekly. With the help of Propel and Michael B. Jordan, they now have a yoga and wellness studio in Los Angeles called the Walk Good Yard. To join their mailing list and connect with healing spaces, please visit walkgoodla.org. That's walkgoodla.org. Or find them on Instagram at walkgoodla. This is a community call to action, a community call to healing from KBLA Talk 1580.
Nearly 7 million Americans aged 65 and older are living with Alzheimer's disease, or AD. But did you know that Black adults aged 65 and older are twice as likely as white adults to develop AD? You may be able to reduce your risk by managing conditions like diabetes and high blood pressure, being physically active, eating healthy, and exercising your mind. To learn more about AD, the importance of early diagnosis and intervention, and a potential treatment option, visit treatalzearly.com. That's treatalzearly.com. This message is brought to you by AZI.
Now back to more of Jesse Jackson Jr. on KBLA Talk 1580.
I'm Jesse Jackson Jr. Welcome forward to the Jesse Jackson Jr. Show, where in this Wealthy Wednesday, our very special guest on the politics of our faith is Dr. S. Todd Yeary, principal of the Yeary Firm, Maryland-based litigation and government relations firm, and also serves as the senior pastor of the Douglas Memorial Community Church of Baltimore and affiliates. Dr. Yeary, welcome forward to the Jesse Jackson Jr. Show.
Did you get another book of matches while we were on break? You setting a lot of stuff on fire today. I'm just saying.
Man, listen, while we were on break, me and the producer were having an argument about whether or not Jesus was coming back. And that didn't even make the show, because we were discussing in that brief moment about character and what it takes to have character and where does character come from. And then I shared with her that of the 47 presidents of the United States, essentially to be a U.S. president is to be born from a privileged background. Even the public vetting process isn't that of a suffering servant, isn't that of someone who necessarily ever had to carry a cross for anyone other than themselves. They've been to Harvard, they've been to Yale, they've grown up in privilege, they've got these coiffed haircuts, this perfect life that they live. They become the Democratic nominee, they get speech writers, they give these speeches. The same thing on the Republican side, these perfectly coiffed people who never had to suffer. And we as American peoples keep waiting and looking for leadership that suffers not at us or talks about our suffering, but suffers with us. And that was the standard. Maybe George Washington wasn't that. I think they believed that we would evolve to that kind of leadership, but that's for another day. Our very special guest in this hour, Dr. Yeary. My father tells me that suffering breeds character, and character breeds faith, and in the end, faith will not disappoint. And in this moment, I now know that Shadrach, Meshach, and Abednego isn't just about 3 boys in a fiery furnace. You have to go through something. The fiery furnace is the character test. You got to go through something. But when you emerge on the other side, you are not the same person that you were when you went in. You got to go through something. You got to suffer. And suffer little children unto me is somewhere in that Bible as well. Dr. Yeary, You know, this is your show in this hour. We got about 6 minutes. I know you got a 6-minute pocket sermon in there somewhere. Come on, man.
Sir.
I'm sorry. My producer is telling me that the Israelites were in the desert, even as Moses. Well, I'm trying to get to the bottom now. Wow.
Listen. We about to leak all over into the next service.
Gina says Todd is looking like the cat that ate the canary.
So let's deal with the three Hebrew boys, Shadrach, Meshach, and a bad Negro. The reason the fiery furnace was even referenced is because the three of them who are identified by their original names challenged the government. And because they refused to be obedient, we're not going to bow down simply because you blow some horns and have yourself a nice little military parade to roll your tanks in front of you and 15 of your closest friends, because ain't nobody else coming to that. Then do what you got to do. And they say, well, if you don't do it, we'll turn the furnace temperature up 7 times higher than it typically is. Here's what they then say. This is where the difference between rhetorical flourishes about faith and actually practicing faith diverge. They say, we have no reason to respond to you, for our God is able to deliver us from this thing. And then they turn and say, but even if God does not, we still not kneeling. See, our problem is we want to be comfortable, not committed. The system doesn't want to be challenged. The system wants to be appeased. And so when we're talking about what's going on here, the reason the furnace is a furnace at all is because it demonstrates that no matter what human resistance tries to put in the way of the character that God requires, no matter how much heat they apply, no matter how much gas they put in the tank, at the end of the day, you got to go through something. And here's the piece that most people miss. When they open the door to the furnace, the guards that were escorting them drop dead. Now, if they drop dead and I'm not yet in it, why don't we run? Because you don't run from destiny. And so it's to prove what they already knew. When they said, our God is well able to deliver us, they were saying God is already with us. The fiery furnace was not necessary to prove to them that God was with them. There to confirm for those who are watching them that they were never walking alone at all. And so we've got to remember when we get challenged by the government that we're not here to just kind of wonder, is God with us? No, we know God is with us. Why? Because the story that we're able to tell that takes us back, 1619 Project, even before that, is that every step around the way. That's why this whole conversation about Black liberation theology is so troubling, because it is unique. The reason they don't like it is because it's unique to the character building experience of what it means to be of African descent on this planet. And when we affirm that, then we get pushback. And slavery shows up, and the compromise is, even in the Constitution when it's adopted, we'll just have slavery until 1808. But we're going to fight a civil war about slavery in 1861. We're going to try to get rid of Reconstruction post-slavery, supposedly, with the civil rights cases. So at the end of the day, it's the character. It's the character that not only gets developed, but it's the character that's affirmed in the moment. And so, yeah, the fiery furnace is there, but the character that brought the fiery furnace precedes the furnace itself.
Thank you, Dr. Uri. Dr. Uri, I'm going to take this last minute and just share with what the Guardian is now reporting, that the President of the United States says that Charlie Kirk was shot dead today during an event at Utah Valley University. Charlie Kirk, the powerful right-wing activist, Trump ally, and executive director of Turning Point USA, has died after being shot in the neck on Wednesday. And while speaking at a university campus event in Utah, Donald Trump has confirmed the great and legendary Charlie Kirk, he refers to him as, no one understood and had the heart and the youth in the United States of America better than Charlie. He was loved by all, admired by all, according to the President of the United States. Indeed, a sad day for all Americans. It's a sad day for our system. It's a sad day for political discourse in the United States. Even when we disagree, we ought to have the character to move on, and everyone is supposed to, at the end of the day, go home tonight. I'm Jesse Jackson Jr. This is Wealthy Wednesdays with Dr. S. Todd Yeary on the Jesse Jackson Jr. Show. Our hearts go out to the Kirk family on this, what is unfolding as an extraordinary, tragic day in the United States. Until tomorrow, I'm Jesse Jackson Jr.
KBLA 1580 Santa Monica.
I'm Amber Payton with BIN News Now. William McNeil, the 22-year-old black man beaten during a Jacksonville, Florida traffic stop, is suing the